I am continuing in my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am continuing reading in a chronological order, according to event, not according to publication or volume, so I'm skipping around a bit as I move along. We are continuing in the Gospels. We are near the end of Christ's mortal ministry, I would say a week or two away. He is coming out of Jericho, traveling to Jerusalem. This is his last journey into the immediate area of Jerusalem. And he has already told the apostles that he is going there to die. This is it. This is the end. Now, a couple of things happen along the way. John and James ask about being on his right and left hand. He heals blind Bartimaeus. Possibly heals two different men at that time, not just Bartimaeus, but that was what we read last, that miracle as he came out of Jericho. We are now going to turn to Luke. In this video, we have a Joseph Smith translation. Now, what the Joseph Smith translation is, this is a translation or correction done by Joseph Smith to restore those passages that have been lost or corrupted over the years. Luke chapter 19, verses 1 through 27. And Jesus entered and passed through Jericho, and behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, which was the chief among the publicans, and he was rich. And he sought to see Jesus, who he was, and could not for the press, because he was little of stature. And he ran before, and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him, and said unto him, Zacchaeus, make haste, and come down, for today I must abide at thy house. And he made haste, and came down, and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all murmured, saying that he was gone to be guest with a man that is a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood and said unto the Lord, Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor, and if I have taken anything from any man by false accusation, I restore him fourfold. And Jesus said unto him, This day is salvation come to this house, forsomuch as he also is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost. Zacchaeus is not a leader of the Jews. Zacchaeus is a publican, and that is a tax collector. He is the chief of the publicans, which means all the other tax collectors, they have their areas in the towns and the cities, and they collect their taxes, and they report to Zacchaeus. And so each publican, in collecting his taxes, he gets to a percentage of what he collects, and Zacchaeus basically gets a percentage of what everybody collects. That's how he gets paid. But when Jesus sees him, and he says, hey, I'm going to eat with you tonight, the people are all, oh, this guy's a sinner, he's a publican, that means automatically he's a sinner. That's just how the Jews think. And Zacchaeus then has to stand up for himself. When the people start accusing him, he says, no, I donate half of everything I make to the poor, and if I find out that anything was taken by false accusation, I restore it, I make good, I live by the law of Moses, is what he's saying, I'm a faithful Jew. And Christ accepts Zacchaeus, says, yes, salvation has come because Zacchaeus is faithful. Now, I do like the story of Zacchaeus. He's a short man, and so when he hears that Christ is coming, he just wants to see him. But he can't see over the crowd. He's too short, and so he climbs the tree. It's a great little story that he's not even thinking of entertaining Christ. He's not even wanting to talk to Christ. He just wants to see him. And he shows his humility, and that's what Christ is about. Christ came to save, and Zacchaeus is showing humility and faith. And so salvation has come to him. But the rest of the Jews are still a little bit perturbed at this. So we continue now in verse 11. And as they heard these things, he added and spake a parable, because he was nigh to Jerusalem, and because they thought that the kingdom of God should immediately appear. He said therefore, a certain nobleman went into a far country to receive for himself a kingdom, and to return. And he called his 10 servants, and delivered them 10 pounds, and said unto them, Occupy till I come. But his citizens hated him, and sent a message after him, saying, We will not have this man to reign over us. And it came to pass that when he was returned, having received the kingdom, then he commanded these servants to be called unto him, to whom he had given the money, that he might know how much every man had gained by trading. Then came the first, saying, Lord, thy pound hath gained 10 pounds. And he said unto him, Well, thou good servant, because thou hast been faithful in a very little, have thou authority over 10 cities. And the second came, saying, Lord, thy pound hath gained 5 pounds. And he said likewise to him, Be thou also over 5 cities. And another came, saying, Lord, behold, here is thy pound, which I have kept laid up in a napkin. For I feared thee, because thou art an austere man. Thou takest up that thou layest not down, and reapest that thou didst not sow. And he saith unto him, Out of thine own mouth will I judge thee, thou wicked servant. Thou knewest that I was an austere man, taking up that I laid not down, and reaping that I did not sow. Wherefore then gavest not thou my money into the bank, that at my coming I might have required mine own with usury? And he said unto them that stood by, Take from him the pound, and give it to him that hath 10 pounds. And they said unto him, Lord, he hath 10 pounds. For I say unto you, that unto every one which hath shall be given, and from him that hath not, even that he hath shall be taken away from him. But those mine enemies which would not that I should reign over them, bring hither, and slay them before me. There's actually quite a lot going on in this parable, but let's try to keep it simple. The nobleman going to acquire a kingdom is, of course, Christ. He is going to be returning into heaven, where he will be sitting on the right hand of God and be made king over all the creation. While he is gone, he leaves his earthly kingdom in the hands of his servants. And this is the same. We will read a similar parable with the 10 talents in Matthew. And that's what, in this, a pound is basically a talent. They're the same thing. And of course, usury is interest. And then when he says, occupy till I return, that's, go do the business, do the work. But you have the servants who work and build the kingdom and make money. They're the ones that are going out, and they're the missionaries. They're bringing souls unto Christ. The servant that doesn't work is the one that hides. He doesn't want to taint what he has, and so he doesn't share it. But you'll also note you have the citizens who don't like Christ and send him the message, we don't want you. These are those in rebellion. These are the apostates. These are the wicked of the world, and when Christ returns, he will claim his own. He will claim and he will reward all those servants who did the work as they were supposed to. He will cast those in the church out who are not doing the work, and then the wicked will be destroyed. And I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want the video to get too long, but you can see that this is, again, a prophecy of the last days. And Christ is trying to explain to the people here that they're thinking, oh, salvation has come to Zacchaeus. That means that the kingdom is going to be established soon. And they say, no. I have to go away on a long journey. And when I come back, that's when the kingdom will be established. Now, let us take a quick look at the Joseph Smith translation. There are quite a few corrections, but most of them are just grammatical again. So in verse 2, instead of which was chief among the publicans, it's just who was chief among the publicans. In verse 7, it says, and when they saw it, is corrected to when the disciples saw it. And then later on, that he was gone to be a guest with a man who is a sinner. And in verse 8, near the end, instead of false accusations, it's just unjust means I restore fourfold. In verse 9, instead of for so much, as he also is the son of Abraham, it's for as much. In verse 11, where it says, and because they thought that the kingdom of God should immediately appear, we correct this to, and because the Jews taught that the kingdom of God should immediately appear. This tells us, it's a minor correction, but it tells us that the Jews believed that the kingdom of God was in hand. See, the people knew when Christ was going to come. The time period of Christ's birth was known. As I've said before, that's why 2/3 of the women are named Mary, because they know this is the time of Christ's birth, and they know his mother was going to be named Mary. And so everybody was naming their daughters Mary. And this is what the Jews are teaching. The Jews are teaching that this is the time for the coming of Christ. They are mixing up the coming. So they're thinking that the second coming is going to be the first coming. But this does tell us that this is what they were teaching. Now in verse 13, we have the addition. So instead of and delivered them 10 pounds, it's and he delivered them 10 pounds. In verse 14, instead of sent a message, it's sent a messenger. In verse 17, instead of just well, thou good servant, it's well done, thou good servant. That makes a lot more sense. In verse 20, instead of behold, here is thy pound, it is just behold thy pound. In verse 21, we add the word which. So, and reapest that which thou didst not sow. In verse 22, we change saith to said. So, and he said unto him, and then, O wicked servant, instead of thou wicked servant. Verse 23 now states, instead of I might have required mine own with usury, it's I might have received mine own with usury. Makes more sense again. Verse 24, That is changed to who in both cases. Them who stood and him who hath 10 pounds. Now we do take out the word it, so it's and give to him instead of give it to him. In verse 26, we have a couple of things here. It now reads, For I say unto you that unto every one who occupieth shall be given, and from him who occupieth not, even that he hath received shall be taken away from him. Remember, to occupy in this case means to do the work, to be employed, engaged in the work. So if you are engaged in the work, then you receive. If you are not engaged in the work, then what you already have will be taken away. Verse 27, let's just reread this one again. It says, But those mine enemies, who would not that I should reign over them, bring them hither, slay them before me. Minor corrections. The one thing I do want to mention here I find very funny is verse 25. That verse that says, And they said unto him, Lord, he hath 10 pounds. It's almost as if the other servants are complaining that he is giving the extra pound to the one that has 10. And that verse is just removed in the Joseph Smith translation. We just get rid of it. I find that kind of funny. Anyways, this is getting long enough, so we're going to end it here, and I will see you in the next one. I believe we're going to be in another combined video, but I could be wrong. I'll see you there.